latest patch, fishing just got a buff. You can now trade in your fish for more scrap than before, and so today's video is going to be a little bit of a reminder that fishing is again viable, but also going over a few details that I missed in my last fishing video. So I'm going to assume that most of you guys have already seen this video, however if you haven't, then I would recommend that you go see it. You'll notice that in the pinned comment I said to use small trout or yellow perch as bait, and in this video I'm just going to be elaborating on it a little bit as well as showing you my updated fishing chart which I made. So if you've done fishing, you'll know that usually you just start out with some grubs or some raw meat in order to get your first fish. Once you have your first fish, then you can gut it, get some raw fish, and then continue the cycle as you'll always get more raw fish after gutting than you used in order to catch the fish. But something that I failed to mention in my previous video is that 6 out of the 9 fish, the ones that can be sold for scrap, have a bait level of 10. So if you use these fish as bait, it's impossible to get any of the 3 smaller ones in the top row. This means that if you keep getting small trout, rather than gutting it for raw fish and trying to get a shark, instead what you should do is put the small trout on the rod, which will give you a much greater chance of getting that shark, which you can trade in for scrap. Here is my updated fishing chart, which you can also find on my Discord. Essentially what it shows is the opportunity cost of gutting your fish when you could have traded it in for scrap. As you can see with the small trout, if we were to gut the fish, we'd only get 4 raw fish. However, if we traded in for scrap, we'd only get 6 anyway. Therefore, we're not really losing out on that much. With the small shark, we do get 20 raw fish, which is a lot, but instead we could have gotten 45 scrap. Therefore, the ratio is much higher, so it's better to actually gut the small trout than it is to gut the sharks. However, taking into account the fact that we can use small trout as bait and turn it into a small shark or something else, we can actually gain a lot more scrap by doing that. So therefore, you always want to use your small trout as bait, as if you get a small shark from it, you're essentially gaining 39 scrap, and if you get a salmon, you're getting 21.5, and so on for the other fish. The same applies for the yellow perch, as you're only using 10 scrap when you're using it as bait, but for the salmon, catfish and orange roughy, it's not really worth it to use them as bait, as you're not really going to be gaining anything only when you get a small shark, and even then it's not really worth it. So you definitely want to be gutting your salmon, catfish and orange roughy specifically in that order due to the ratios that I demonstrated earlier. The increase across all the fish was roughly around 30%, so however much scrap you were getting before, just times it by 1.3 and that's how much you can expect to get after the buff. Again, the underwater labs is the best location, however the fishing village or in a river is fine, specifically because you can fish safely in these areas. Information I have for you in today's video, most of your questions should be able to be answered in the first video, which I will link in the description, but for any other questions feel free to leave a comment or come join me in my Discord. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one.